So here I am in Tokyo, Japan doing daily sneaker videos, and somehow these two sneakers slipped past me. Today I'm shooting this video on May the 12th, I think the date is today, and these guys drop on May the 19th. That's way too close to the drop date for me. I usually go way before that. This video is going to make it up onto YouTube on the 13th at the earliest, which is only 6 days before the drop date. But you know what? They say just came out of the blue, found these sneakers. One's a BLAZER, the other one's an Air Force One, two shoes that I absolutely adore, and then it's a Japanese artist that we're working with today, Mayumi Yamase, and I have to do the shoes. I can't have a shoe like this dropping in my own backyard and not bring it to you guys. So today that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a close-up look at these guys and look at some of the details on them. And when there's two shoes or more in a video, I do try and sort of stick to the main hits instead of going in great detail into the shoes, because that would take forever. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at these two sneakers that are coming down the line in about 6 days at time and get in there and look at the main hits on them, so you guys can get an idea of what is coming down the line with the Nike Air Force One and the Nike BLAZER Low Flyleather Mayumi Yamase. This is the Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channel. Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channel desu. Mainichi yapsuru no de, mainichi mite kudasai. And every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And in the spotlight today are two amazing sneakers from the Nike line: a Nike BLAZER Low Flyleather and a Nike Air Force One, both tying up with Mayumi Yamase, an artist who's based here in Tokyo, Japan. Now, I believe she is actually Japanese, but she's trained and educated in the UK, specifically, I think it was London School of Art, if I remember rightly. And it's just right in my backyard. I have to do this video with an artist who's not that far away from where I am, right here in Tokyo, Japan. And I've got a few sort of ties to the art world as well in my regular job, my regular life, not particularly in my YouTube life. So seeing these guys coming down the line, I just had to go ahead and grab them. And just like I said, it was really sort of like out of the blue. I hadn't seen them coming, saw them drop onto the Sneakers app for May the 19th. And then also when I was looking through the sites, the just added or recently added tag was attached to them. So it came out of the blue. Didn't have enough time to look through them and get them to you guys, the 10 or 14 days before the drop date that I like to do. But still, being so local and being so cool, they're definitely shoes that I want to get into. So what we're going to do today is basically we're going to look at the similarities between the two shoes, because I would say 9 out of 10 things that I'll tell you today are the same on both shoes. But then there's that little 1%, 10% that's unique to each shoe, like the outsoles, for example, or some of the hits on the BLAZERs, and we'll get into those bits as well. So let's take it bit by bit through the shoes, the main hits that I think are very important to tell you about, so you can know what's coming down the line. And the first thing I want to do is I want to look at the way they construct the lateral sides and the medial sides on both shoes, because they have a similar motif, a similar story, a similar artistic spread going on in there. And what I'm talking about is, if you look right here, and I don't know which one I'll use. I'll use the Air Force One to show you one element, and I'll use the BLAZER to show the other element. And what I'm talking about, element number one, is that you've got an all-white sneaker, but on top of that you've got these painted elements of art in there. So for example, the one that I'm going for right now is that the swooshes are all white on an all-white upper, but then on top of that a freehand painted paintbrush painted swooshes on top of that. So the swoosh itself isn't the color, it's actually just that freehand brushing on it. And hopefully what you're seeing on the green screen behind me here is you can see that the swoosh is white, and it's sort of just over the top. There's a little bit of paint painted on, but not perfectly to match the outline of the swoosh. There are some places where it goes over onto the upper, and there are other places where it doesn't catch the whole swoosh, and parts of the swoosh are still white. So that's a major element of both shoes, is the swoosh having an overwrite on the top of it on one side. And then when you get to the other side, it looks like this right here. So this will be the other shoe. So we've looked at one of the shoes, now we're at the other shoe to demonstrate what I'm talking about now, which is that it isn't the same, and that over painting on top of the swoosh on the upper and the lateral side is now gone, and it's been replaced by some very sort of simple colours, not many colors playing here, like 1 or 2 colors, not like 5 or 6 colors, for example. Little bits of design, little hits of design, but they're totally removed from the swoosh. This is not an attempt to sort of go over the top of the swoosh and kind of mimic or shadow the swoosh. Instead, what you've got here is something completely removed from that. And that's the same on both shoes, on both the Air Force Ones and on the Blazer Lows. Is that lateral side, you've got the swoosh kind of mimicked in brushstrokes, and then the medial side, you've got those sort of big chunks of design on there that don't get anywhere near the swoosh really at all. So that's point number one. Point number two, I think, you know what I'd like to do is I'd like to go to the heel on both guys. Now, there are a few differences in the size and I think the shade of colour is a little bit different, and then the actual branding panel that we're talking about they're placed on. But we'll put up the Air Force Ones first, and you can see what I'm talking about with this sort of freestyle branding on the back end of these guys. And then if we flip that out to the Blazers and you get to see what's going on there, you can see the similarities are quite large. There's a lot going on the heels. It's very similar between both shoes, but there are a couple of little differences. If we go back to the first one, you can see just a few little differences in size and the materials used, especially on the panel itself as opposed to the branding. But again, very similar between the two shoes. And since we're up in that sort of area, it's not too hard to flip it up and go have a look at the tongues, and then beside the tongues, the insoles, because there's an awful lot of similarity going on across the two shoes with the tongues and the insoles, but also from the tongues themselves back to the insole. So hopefully what we can do is look down from above and see that the branding on the tongues. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the Air Force Ones because the Blazers are more interesting. So we'll start with the Air Force Ones, and you can see that big freehand green swoosh at the top of the branding on the tongue there. And then if you go back from that, both tongues have the freehand swoosh on them, but behind that on the insoles, you can see the freehand swoosh on one, but then that kind of similar to the medial side hits of art design on there is now brought into the insole, so the insoles do not match. And that was the Air Force Ones, and the reason I did that was because if we go over to the Blazers, you can see basically the same sort of structure going on with the same kind of green freehand swoosh up high, and then back from that looking into the insoles, you can see the differences between the two there. But what's more interesting on the Blazers is if you go forward instead of back on the tongue branding and look at the tongues themselves, whereas the Air Force One tongues were all white, you can see the Blazer tongues have a lot more colour going on there and a lot more sort of definition, a bit more interest in there. And that brings me to one of the very big differences between the two shoes. If we keep going forward from that and look around the toe area of the Blazers, you can see that the laces and the toe sort of we can call them mud guards, are in grey to complement the white of the upper, so you've got two tones going together there. And then if we flip that over and back to the Air Force Ones, you can see the Air Force Ones are much more about being that single tone white, the lacing system in white, and nothing going on with mud guards to give you a second colour on there. So those Blazers with that grey in there is definitely a unique part of the shoe or the pack compared to the Air Force Ones. And the other unique thing that's going on is, I suppose we'll look at the Air Force Ones first on the outsole, and you can see that it's a very light outsole with a little bit of translucence going on to see through it. It's not quite as solid as, say, in gumsole, and the reason I'm saying that is because if we go over to the Blazers, you can see the Blazers themselves have that very standard Blazer gumsole on there, and it's not got any translucence in it at all. So that's another big difference between the two shoes. So the two real main differences in their construction is that outsole on both of them, and then the mud guards that you see on the Blazers and you don't see on the Air Force Ones. So and that pretty much takes us through everything I think there was to talk about the shoes and their hits and their branding and the different sort of ways that the shoes are put together, the different elements of art that are brought in from Mayumi Yamase and her style, her work. And I'm seriously, I really am, I'm not kidding, I'm seriously thinking of reaching out to the artist and asking her if she's available, or if there's some potential for her to tie up what she does and what I do in my usual life, which is more in the world of education than in YouTube. So watch this space and we'll see if maybe Mayumi Yamase will do me the honour of connecting to my life so I can bring her into the world of education, fingers crossed. And with that being said, it's pretty much time to wrap this one up and finish up the video for today. To be honest, it's a bit of a weird one. You guys obviously don't know this because you haven't seen this, but the first, I do it every day. Every day it's the same structure to the video, about a minute's worth of introduction, then an intro card, and then the rest of the video talking about the shoes. But for some reason today, after I'd shot that first bit and then getting into this is the Tokyo Bara 23 sneaker channel, I had to shoot that like 5 different times because I got something like croaky going on in my throat. And every time I went, this is the Tokyo Bara, it was like, oh, it was like something chucked in there and stopping me from doing it. And I was seriously thinking, like, this is taking way too long. I might have to can this video and just bring it back tomorrow, which is not something I like to do. I like to have 1 or 2 days of stock so that if I do need to take a break from YouTube, I'm not actually losing my daily video, drops for you guys out there. So today it was a real worry that picture, the intro card where I do the intro and then the card and then into that, this is the Tokyo Bara 23 sneaker channel bit, that actually took about 3 minutes to shoot instead of like 20 seconds. So, but we got there in the end, we got through the video, and hopefully I didn't, distract anyone with like sort of scratchy voice or any problems down there in the throat department. Fingers crossed it worked out fine. Speaking of things working out fine, it's time to wrap this one up because I think it is done. And happy with the video today, happy with the video every day. And because I do videos every single day, you know what I get to say at the end of those videos is that because I do this every single day, you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.